Hey, welcome to the second course video for the song Chokehold from Sleep Token and their album Take Me Back to Eden. I'm musically malnourished, and you're on my journey to go deep and wide in discovering new music and artists. In these videos, we do a deep dive into the lyrics and meaning behind the music. So let's get in, see if we can figure out what's going on with Chokehold. Okay, verse 1. When we were made, it was no accident. We were tangled up like branches in a flood. I come as a blade, a sacred guardian, so you keep me sharp and test my worth in blood. So, again, I generally take these as more of a relationship based, or many times he might be talking about his own experiences, like things that he's dealing with, but a lot of it seems to revolve around relationship as well. And obviously it's open to interpretation, and then others lean into the lore. My feeling is even leaning into the lore is still reflective of human relationships. And so obviously this idea, when we were made, it was no accident, just this idea of being made and formed with intent. And we'll look at some of these annotations in a second, but let's try to work it out a little bit ourselves. We were tangled up like branches in a flood. Being tangled up like branches or being tangled together can give this like positive idea, but the idea of being tangled up like branches in a flood could also just mean like the course of life and how things went through this turmoil. We ended up tangled together. You know, there is a bonding through difficulty. It could also be indicative of some of the past things he shared with like the toxic relationship that we've been like washed away together, but it tangled us up. Or you could also just take a more positive spin that it's giving just an idea, a mental picture of what two people who are tangled together looks like. But if I had to guess, I would say it's kind of through this turmoil we ended up tangled together. So I come as a blade, a sacred guardian. So this idea of feeling protective. So you keep me sharp and test my worth in blood. The main thing I'm trying to figure out there is, so if he is the blade, she keeps him sharp and then tests his worth. So like trying to see what it is that you have. The words are failing me, this idea of testing his worth. But the real thing that's kind of throwing me off is like testing his worth in blood. Is this the idea of that he's had to be a guardian, that he's been used and exercised in such a like spilt blood on her behalf, and that's testing his worth? Like if you have a weapon that's made for destruction, you test its worth in the amount of destruction it can cause. I'm not necessarily saying that here, but maybe he has in a way had to feel like a guardian, feel like a protector, whether that's against another or just within their relationship, and trying to be helpful or trying to make the relationship work. He's had to test his worth in blood, in using himself as a blade, as this guardian. But let's see. We'll just float down these for a moment. I believe this is referring to the saying, we were made for each other, which is common for people to say to their significant other. Having this song be told toward a lover makes "you've got me in a chokehold" could mean Vessel can't stop thinking about said person, putting essentially a mental chokehold on them. All right, jumping ahead a little bit. When bits of wood get washed away by floodwater, they tangle up and get stuck together. They can eventually form dams that can hold back the water. Reinforces the idea of protection that shows up throughout the song. like their relationship is akin to a floodgate, holding something back to stop something else from getting destroyed. That's interesting. This could refer to Vessel considering himself to be somehow dangerous or violent, like a bladed weapon with no purpose. However, when he meets and becomes entangled with his partner, he has a change of heart, pledges to use his proclivity for violence as a means of protecting. Rather than for aggressive purposes, he becomes a guardian instead of a blade. Well, but I think the blade is the guardian. That the last line could refer to the fact that Vessel's partner constantly puts them in dangerous situations where his protection is required. Based on the following verse, which appears to be about redemption, he may have failed this test. Yeah, I guess my main thing is I just don't float to actual violence. I think it's more in just the sense of a protection through words, through action, not necessarily having to exercise violence against another person. You've got me in a chokehold, which a chokehold just means you're powerless. You're held captive. And that very much could just be in the sense of being enamored by the person, being captivated by the person. Let's see what this says. The chokehold here is figurative. Well, I would hope so. Referring to how tight a grip sleep has over Vessel. Being held by the throat without fear is both intimate and vulnerable, implying a great deal of trust having been placed in sleep. It's also a subtext that sleep was the one who initiated this worship, as one cannot really place themselves in another's tight grip. And obviously that's kind of taking a lore view, but I think the idea of being in a chokehold continues that double-sided nature to the relationship, right? It's not like you've got me in your grips. You've got me in your warm embrace. You've got me in a chokehold. This feeling of being taken captive by who this person is, and in some ways unable to fight it. Beneath the stormy seas, above the mountain peaks, it's all the same to me. It makes no difference. I've seen my days unfold, done the impossible. I'll turn my walls to gold to bring you home again. So show me that which I cannot see. Even if it hurts, even if I can't sleep. Oh, and though we act out of our holy duty to be constantly awake. You've got me in a chokehold. Okay, we'll see what this says. I mean, at first glance, beneath stormy seas, above mountain peaks seems to speak to two extremes. So obviously being beneath stormy seas would generally give this idea of turmoil, difficulty. Above mountain peaks, it's like the high points, the joys, the glories. And we all experience those in life, right? We're beneath stormy seas at times. We're above on mountain peaks. It's kind of like, and this is just a general life principle, don't make rash decisions in either of those places. When you're beneath the stormy seas, it's so easy to give up, to throw in the towel. And on the contrary, when you're on the high peaks, it's easy to become prideful and arrogant. And so I think it's always good, and it's at least served me well in life, that when I feel at my lowest, I'm careful about the decisions I make. And when I feel at my highest, I'm careful about the decisions that I make. Because you generally, in either of those places, don't always have the best perspective. Sometimes when you realize you're at the highest point, it's like, well, we'll slow down a little bit. Let's just kind of make sure we're looking at this properly. And then again, I think that place of making decisions from the highest place, or just being careful not to let that influence your mind, again, making you prideful and arrogant, that's sometimes harder to do because you feel like, oh, I'm on top of the world. I think down in the low places, it's easier for us to understand that idea of like, be careful of the decisions you make, be careful of the things that you carry out, be careful of the words that you say, and like allow yourself to kind of ease out of that a little bit first. But But it sounds like he's saying no matter those things, it's all the same to him. It makes no difference. I've seen my days unfold, done the impossible. And this is interesting because to bring you home again implies that she's no longer there. And obviously, like, I'll turn my walls to gold. Like, I'll do anything. Let's see what this says. Ooh, very short annotation for such a long section. Before he failed his test, the next stage of their relationship is going to be full of hurdles and obstacles that he is more than willing to meet head on and overcome. He's devoted and won't let time, logistics, or obstacles get in the way of winning his partner back. He's determined to do what is right by his partner, no matter the cost. Interesting. You got me in a chokehold, even if it hurts, even if I can't sleep. I wonder if this is the same thing. Okay, no, it's a different. So this line, even if it hurts, even if I can't sleep, show me the way. This calls back the pleading to get better from earlier, but the added show me the way is a call for help. It's the call for help in the whole song. This represents the moment in a downward emotional spiral where you are ready to actually put in the work if someone will just show you the way. Yeah, and there may be more going on here than I fully realize, and I'm trying to come into Sleep Token songs not immediately going to it having to be about another person. And I'm not even talking about like in terms of lore. I'm just saying sometimes language like this can even be an internal dialogue. I'm not saying that this is, but I am trying to keep that in mind, that I don't like shoehorn myself into this one view or one interpretation. But I'm sure there's more going on here than I can see. So let me know in the comments if you see something differently, and we'll have a good conversation there. Thanks for being with me for this one. I hope to see you in the next one, because we're eating good.